So who was this John McSweeney guy? Well, first off, on the surface, he looked like an ordinary businessman with a pot belly and a comb over. But John was a very adept martial artist. He had studied judo and jiu-jitsu in Japan while he was in the military. He actually served in 3 different branches of the United States military. He was also one of Ed Parker's first Kempo black belts. John was a prolific writer. He wrote books about SWAT. He wrote books about, gunfighting, unarmed self-defense, armed self-defense. He did videos. He also had a cable access show back in the 80s called In Defense of Your Life. So today, John's legacy is pretty non-existent. A few of his former students remember him. And on YouTube, you can find people making fun of him and some of the videos he made back in the 80s because they are somewhat dated. And John, being a very intense and somewhat eccentric fella, it's easy to make fun of. However, if you actually look at the videos, you find that John was actually a very proficient martial artist and had some very good ideas about self-defense strategies. So before we go to John's take on firearms and firearm self-defense, let me show you what we're using today. This is a Model 66-2 Combat Magnum from Smith & Wesson. And as you can see, I have a safety snap from Zeta 6 inserted. Now what John believed, and which is true, most self-defense situations with a firearm occur from 5 yards in, very close distances. And he had no use for two-handed shooting at that distance. So what he taught was a hip point shooting where you stepped into a crouch, holding the gun parallel to the ground, you fired. And you also could maneuver if there were other assailants. So how do you practice this? And according to John, you did so by practicing, doing dry fire practice in front of a mirror and doing hundreds of repetitions. And at least once a month, you would go to the range and spend some time with 50 to 100 rounds shooting at the range. And the better you got, the more proficient you got. And once again, this is very simple, just like his martial arts. Keep it simple. Keep it something that you train repetitively. And he felt like the average person had more opportunity and a better chance of defending themselves with very simple techniques practiced over and over again. So how does this work? How well does it work? Well, for those who've watched my channel for many years, I do practice hip point shooting a little bit different from John. And I do think it could be valuable from 3 yards in. But what we're going to do, we'll shoot hip point at 5 yards, and then we'll go to shooting with 2 hands at 5 yards and just see how it works. All right, let's look at how I did. All right, first shot here, second shot. All right, the next 2, first shot, second shot. So I'm hitting kind of low and then moving up because of the recoil of the gun. Now, the last 2 that I did, I got right here. So let's do something different. Now, this was McSweeney style, stepping forward, hip point shooting from 5 to 4 yards. Let's go back. And we'll start at the 5 yard, and then we'll step back, except this time we'll do aimed fire with 2 hands. All right, this time right here and then 1, 2. Just obviously, if you can shoot with both hands, it's much better. And I have to say, McSweeney likes stepping forward. I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing. John was a very aggressive kind of guy, and if he felt like his life was in danger, he was going to plow on through. Sometimes it might be better to step back to create space and distance from that attacker. And also when you're moving forward, that if they're close quarters, that gives the aggressive criminal with violent intent opportunity to try to snatch that gun or move it away. So I tend to think if you're going to take a neutral stance, okay, but moving backwards tends to create space against a violent attack. It gives you more time to react. Now, having said that, let me say this. During my 2 decades of law enforcement, I actually drew down on criminal-minded individuals or people who I thought may have been criminally-minded individuals about a dozen or so times. And there were 2 different times where somebody was very close quarters, and it just seemed very natural to draw like this. So the closer you are, that might still be an option. So let me know what you think. And this is Greg with Lionquest Fitness.